Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to How to Produce Your Own Play. Oh, I'm sorry. The art of producing your own play. Today is about taking the mystery out of production and giving you a clear sense of what it really takes to bring a script to life. And before we get into the nitty gritty of this conversation, I wanted to read a quote from a trusted colleague and advisor who is very, very smart about this kind of thing because they have been involved in theater for a long time, but they wanted to remain anonymous. But here is what they said: theater is a collaborative art. If you have words that you want to put in front of the public and you believe they are perfect the way they are and need no collaboration or participation from others, you should write a book and self publish. So I can't agree more. When you write a play, that's one thing. And when you produce a play, that's an entirely different thing. A script is your idea, your cookie dough, but once you decide to put it in front of an audience, you're stepping into a kitchen. And the venue becomes the oven, and your job as a producer is to make sure the ingredients are ready, the temperature is right, and the team around you knows exactly what they're doing. So tonight we're going to walk through the essential roles: producer, director, stage manager, production manager, designers, and talk about how they work together and what happens when, and to how to scale your project realistically. And then we've got some questions for Brian and Stephanie, and then we'll take comments and questions from the audience. And I'm going to introduce the panelists who are joining me this afternoon. But I also want to say, whether you're dreaming about your first table read or gearing up for a full production, the goal is to give you the tools, language, and confidence to take the next step. So thank you all for coming and hearing what we have to say. To introduce the panelists today for the art of producing your own play, I'm Ann Lambert. I'm the producing artistic director for Charlotte's Off Broadway, which is a theater company here at VAPA. I'm an award-winning actor, director, and producer, toss toss, who has been creating professional theater in Charlotte since 1998. I'm a producing artistic director of Charlotte's Off Broadway and a founding member of the VAPA Center, and I've helped to launch and support numerous new works in my 55-seat black box theater. And my long history of producing independent theater and mentoring emerging artists makes me a key voice on how to bring a script from page to stage. That's so right here. I'm going to introduce Anna Montgomerie. She's the production manager of Charlotte's Off Broadway. She is a veteran stage manager and production manager with 4 decades of experience at companies including the Guthrie Theater, NC Black Repertory Company, and the Cleveland Playhouse. A past member of Actors Equity Association, she has supported the development and technical realization of countless productions. And at Charlotte's Off Broadway, she guides artists through the practical steps of mounting new work from early planning to tech and performance. Brian Day is an accomplished actor, director, playwright, and producer whose original works have toured regionally and premiered at Charlotte's Off Broadway. His one-man show, Hey You, an Afro stereophonic journey, and his recent work, By Any Other Name and Opus for James Baldwin, both had sold-out runs at Charlotte's Off Broadway. He's got experience across theater, film, and television, and he brings firsthand insight into developing, producing, and performing original work. And Stephanie Gardner is a playwright and an actor, and a Charlotte Place playwright whose work explores power, identity, and narrative communities build around themselves. Her plays, including A Small and Humble Erasure and American Lightning, examine historical memory and the cost of shaping public stories. Got multiple works in development, and she offers a writer's perspective on shepherding a script through readings, revisions, and early production steps. Before we get into the meat of our conversation, I want to ask everybody in the audience to raise your hand if you've ever seen a play. That's good. Keep them up, keep them up. Been involved in a theatrical production in some capacity, including tech. So, in some capacity, everybody, that's awesome. Acted on stage, directed a show, okay? Produced a show. Okay, I got a few people. Raise your hand if you've written a script. Okay? That has been read aloud in front of an audience. Okay, so we've got a few people who are playwrights, but we got a lot of people. I think everybody in the audience has done some sort of theatrical work, and we're really proud and want to congratulate you for your contribution. So Anna and I are going to split this conversation for the first part, and then we're going to get into the conversations with our guest playwrights. I want to tell you what producing actually is. Producing a play is not the same as producing a script. A script is an idea. A production is a project. It's got logistics, people, money, and deadlines. Your job as a producer is to create the conditions for work to succeed, not to do every task yourself, but to make sure that every task gets done. Again, I use this metaphor a lot. The venue is the oven, your project is the cookie dough. The oven has fixed capacities, limitations, and rules, and your script and your plan are the ingredients. You control quality, clarity, and readiness. If the dough isn't ready, the oven can't fix it. If the oven isn't right, the dough won't bake well. So listen to the venue. That's me and Anna. You follow their directions and you ask questions early. So Anna, can you continue?
Sure. So, why do you need help with your production? You need, if you want to collaborate, oh, it's on. I'll be closer. Okay. I don't know. The monitors are really booming up here, so apparently, thanks, Arthur. So you need help with your production if you want collaboration, and if you want collaboration, you should get the right people working with you. Starting with a production manager and a stage manager. If you bring those on early, they will help you. Thank you, nodding. If you bring those people on early, it will make your job easier. Um, a lot of people think that the producer has to do all the work. No, the producer has to hire the right people, and they have to hire people they trust that know what they're doing. A production manager and a stage manager will set up your schedule, and they will help you get things running as far as building, creating your the right situation in your venue. They'll keep all the reports distributed. The production manager and the stage manager are, how do you put it, Jen? The central processing unit for all the information about your show going to the right people. And if you keep everybody on the same page with all the things that are happening with your production, you don't end up in a tech week going, well, I thought we had costumes for the chorus. Where are things like that? So communication distribution is why you have a production manager and a stage manager. At least one of those needs to be involved in every production you do, even if it's just a table read. So Anne wanted us also to address the different levels of producing a show. And you can start with a table read, which I think Stephanie and Brian agree is the best place to hear your words out loud the first time. Other people saying your words will get you moving down the right path to any changes and adjustments that need to be made. So start with a table read. And then there are script and hand readings, staged readings, or concert readings for music. So you add a little bit more production to it. People are walking around. You have a little bit of blocking, maybe a prop or two, a little bit of lighting, and maybe a sound cue or two to enhance your production. That's another way to get the feel for what your words are going to be like with other humans saying them. And then there's the full production. You add everything you can afford in a reasonable manner. And knowing how much you can afford is another key that you will address. Are we there yet?
Yeah, we're here.
Into budget.
It's called budgeting the unskippable step. You need to build a simple, realistic budget before committing to anything else. And that includes casting. Now, some of us have a lot of actor friends who will pretty much take any opportunity to be on stage, and they will sometimes do it for free. That's where you should start. Free actors are fine. But if you use musicians or if you need to do something that's a little more complicated, like puppetry or an elaborate prop that you need from the very beginning, you might have to pay those people to offer their skill set, especially musicians. They seldom work for free. You want to include the rental, the rehearsal space, the printing, the props, the costumes, the marketing, box office fees, and they call them stipends here. I mean, I put all my stuff into AI, and AI gave me this nice handy dandy disc. Don't spurn AI. It's really great for stuff like this. Let's say you say to AI, "I'm going to do such and such with 5 actors. Give me a simple production budget," and they will give it back to you. Now, don't trust what they do. Go through and look at it, but it's a good place to start with all of these kinds of things. Um, the budget has to track every expense because you can leak. You know, you're like, oh, I need copies of the script, and you forgot to make them for the first rehearsal, and you run to UPS store, the Kinko's, and you get it done at a rush job fee. Well, if you had planned to get them 2 weeks ago, then you wouldn't have had to pay the rush fee. So, kind of thinking about planning it out and putting it out on a schedule can save you money. If you're interested in looking at a rehearsal or, sorry, a production budget, after this, email me and I will send you a sample of some of the ones that I've used. And what I do is I start with an actual budget. And then as I pay those bills, I put them over in another column and I put the date I paid, who I paid, and what money I paid them. And that keeps track of something. What if I forgot to pay somebody? And then they call me and they say, hey, you never paid me for my costumes. I can go look and see if I did or did not because there's, maybe 50 expenses that I have to keep track of. So that's another thing that a producer does is they keep track of the money. Box office and ticketing. I know a lot of people come to Charlotte's Off Broadway or go to another venue and they're like, oh, we just walked up and we bought a ticket at the door. And that can be fine for a small production with one night. But if you're going to do over a couple of weeks, you usually want to use some sort of box office service. It's not the venue's job to do that for you. Some venues can offer that. It's usually at a cost. And so we recommend that you just decide how you're going to sell tickets, and you can do it by looking online. Sometimes you can do it with some sort of event software like Eventbrite. It may not be the right one for you, but one thing about those kinds of event software things is they put the money that people are spending right into your bank account, and you don't have to worry about it. It just goes right in there. But you also can just do a simple RSVP list, especially if you're doing a reading. Just have people walk up and throw some pay what you can money in the box. But you also need to plan for who staffs the door. If you're producing or directing, you don't want to be the person running around trying to give somebody directions on the phone when it's 5 minutes before curtain. You want a door person or a house manager to manage that. And you want to check them in. You want to handle late seating. If somebody comes 10 minutes late, and that happens all the time at VAPA because sometimes it's hard to find, you need to know when the break is or some of the lights go down in something 10 minutes into the show so you can open the door and point to somebody and tell them where to go sit so that you're not interrupting the actors or the other artists who are involved in the show. And that's a house manager. And so you need somebody like that that's not you. And you want to make it easy for people to attend. One of the things, for example, that we do here at Charlotte's Off Broadway is we, instead of giving the address for VAPA, which is 700 North Tryon, we give the address for the parking, which is 731 North College. That's the entry into the parking lot. Because if you go to 700 North Tryon, it's the locked gate where the sheriff's department parks. The address of the building, but it's not the address of the parking. So something like that is something that a producer has to keep in mind. And then marketing and audience building. This is actually one of my favorite parts about producing. I've spent a long time producing. I think I produced one of my first shows in Charlotte in 2002. And I started a list when I was starting with another company called Chicksphere that I started with my friends. And some Chicksphere folks are in the building right now. And I started an email list that I've kept since 2002. You're on that list. If you are here, you're probably on that list. You got it from that. And that's something that I really think of as all my friends. That's 1,750 people on that list. And they're my friends that I want to make sure know what's happening to me and to my friends in the artistic world. So think about that as something that you're collecting and you're keeping track of and you're trying to communicate with them. Not only when you're doing a show, but I like to tell them when somebody else I know is doing a show, and I like to tell them when there are auditions in town. So anyway, if Brian and Stephanie are doing a show, I want them to have their information out to my group. You want to get your friends to attend. They're your first audience. So, kind of make them come. They owe you. So make them come. Use free tools, social media, email lists, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Ask your cast and collaborators to share the event. And then create a simple, clear graphic. And guess what? Psst, AI will do that for you as well. It's not that great, but it's better than zero. And be consistent with your messaging. Send it out periodically. Anna, do you want to talk about artistic scope?
Don't forget alcohol.
Alcohol. But thank you, Brian. Brian, we're going to ask you more questions in a moment. Add more tips like that. That's good. Anna.
Okay, it's my turn to talk about artistic scope and ambition and a few other things. So when you've written a play, you can probably see it all in your head, and it's beautiful and it's fully produced, and there's a chorus of 30 people and dancers over here, and it's all in your head, and you don't have the money to do that probably the first time unless you find some great grants and sponsors, and not a lot of people do that right off the bat, but eventually. There's production. For example, in the Charlotte's Off-Broadway space, it would be practical to do something very small with just as few actors as it can be done with, and it's the props and furniture that you already have or that your cast has. A lot of times that happens. Actors or costume themselves very frequently. And then focus on what the story is that you want to tell. Just focus on your words first. And then the rest of the production elements can come in later. So for rehearsal planning, the fully produced shows typically will start several years ahead of time. For producing your own play, a year to 6 months out is a practical time frame to look at. You start with your design team, if you're using one, or your production team. Get a stage manager and or a production manager and have them build the practical schedule with you. Get your space reserved and try to set up the most practical rehearsal schedule you can with what you're able to do before you even think about casting the show. We see a lot. People just feel like, I have the words, I need a room and some actors, and the rest happens by me. And it just doesn't work that way. So planning well with a production team will get you there. And having people who know your budget will help you as well. So communicating with your team and your cast is another topic we want to get to. I'm moving. Okay, he's jacking me up and I'm moving back. Sorry, Arthur, we'll find the happy medium. So putting all your expectations in writing is a great place to begin. Know what you want to accomplish with what you've got and let your production team know what your goals are. They will help you get there if you've got the right people. Have your production manager and or your stage manager build a schedule that works for everybody. Once you've got a cast, you get the conflicts. And one of the things that we have learned with casts of people that have 9-to-5 jobs, don't share the conflict schedule with everybody. That way you'll end up with rehearsals that only 1 or 2 people can attend. So try to set the expectations that you're going to produce a show. The call times are the call times. You're going to do what you can do. And we know that conflicts do happen and you have to work around them. But it's not something that everybody needs to know. Knowing who needs to get information is what your production manager and your stage manager can do. And not all of the information about every element of the production needs to be shared with everybody. Know who needs to know what item and only share with the right people. And going right after that. Try to be the calmest person in the room at all times.
And I want to reiterate, the right stage manager and or the right production manager. A lot of times, if you're at the first or second stage of the process, you need the stage manager and or the production manager because they sort of share responsibility. But a production manager is essentially that. The aspects of it that are production facing are their responsibility. So costumes and set and those kinds of bigger components that are physical. And then I think of the stage manager as sort of the project manager. But it just depends. You really need to sort of figure out what you want. But absolutely, you have to have a production manager or a stage manager. Don't try to do it yourself because you won't do it well. And a well-trained production manager and or stage manager knows how to do it. There are templates to use. There are structures. They're the center of communication for a project. It's not you to talk about to the actors. The stage manager will communicate with the actors at your behest. So that's just something to remember. And then closing out the show, a lot of people, if you've been an actor in a show, they're sort of like, actors have to stay for strike. Strike is when you break down everything that's physically on the stage and take home your costumes and get all your crap out of the dressing room.
They only need to stay for strike if you want them.
Exactly. A producer hires the people who do those things. And with most productions, the stage manager and the production manager will set that schedule and decide who needs to be there. Sometimes actors don't need to be there, and you might just be getting in the way. You usually get your own stuff out as an actor, and then the producer and the technical side manage that. So again, not necessarily the same in a community theater production, but in a semi-professional, professional situation, the stage manager, production manager, producer manage that side. You want to pay people promptly if you promise payment. Again, payment's a relative term. There's an honorarium pay, which might be $100 for somebody for 6 weeks of rehearsal and 2 weeks of performance, or it might be equity scale, or it might be Julia Roberts getting $15 million. So you got to scale, and you got to be relative to the production that you're working on. You want to thank everybody publicly and privately. So that's something important to do. And then you want to think about how you did. Maybe have a little recap meeting with some of the key players, or, maybe do that on Zoom or something like that. I think that you got to think about what you do differently next time. And so thank you for listening to all of that. We're going to have some time for some Q&A from the audience. But first, now I want to turn to Brian and Stephanie. And as I said, they both produced their own work in the Charlotte Off Broadway space and in other spaces. And so I want to start with Brian and then followed by Stephanie. Brian, what part of producing your own play that you wrote feels or felt the most mysterious and intimidating? We know what you did well. You produced a play and it was great and it sold out. But what was the scariest or most intimidating part when you were starting?
I won't use this example of Baldwin to answer that question. If I may, I'll use another example. A couple of years ago, I directed my first and only musical to date, which was Memphis musical at Victory Community Theater. And the most mysterious thing for me directing that was I had seen the entire production, the Broadway production on YouTube. But the great mystery to me initially was how to obviously with Broadway, but Hickory's stage is no joke. So how do you convert what you've seen in that strata to what I had in Hickory? And that was my biggest question at the time. And I called a good friend of mine, and a friend told me, "You've seen the production, okay? Now make it your own. Use your own thought processes based on what, not necessarily what you just saw on YouTube, what you have with the actors I had." So that really revolutionized my way of thinking about how to attack directing a musical It really is a different muscle altogether. And once I used that frame of mind and got through that and basically used the all right, everybody hold hands. We're going through this together. Use that modality frame of mind. Then it was terrific. But you, to your point, you have to acknowledge and not anticipate nor speak about anything negative because you really have to be ready for anything. But in a situation like that, one that you never directed before, I had to really slow down, regroup, rethink, okay, how do we make all this happen in theater uh, capability, and things worked out.
I'll say. And Stephanie, the same question. What part of producing your own play feels the most mysterious or intimidating?
Period. As a writer, I think the production management, production meeting, all of that sounds really magical to me. Everything that the tech side does is very magical, and all the buttons we're pushing. But for me, with the shows I did, Charlotte's Off Broadway, I think the marketing was the most intimidating because ultimately, here's a play that nobody's heard of. Just finished writing it, a table read, and now I'm asking people to come see something they've never heard of. It's not a musical that they've seen before, and that is kind of using every means that you can to get the word out that people come.
Well, that's where I say ask your friends and make them come. They owe you. Um, um, Back to Brian. What role of producer, director, stage manager, production manager, and designer do you feel you understand the best, and which one do you want to learn more about? So again, producer, director, stage manager, production manager, designer.
Well, producing, particularly the Baldwin, it's really, really, really uh, galvanized me and really strengthened me. Thank you. And I learned so much about it because, again, to your point, here's a new piece, nobody's seen it. You know, what? But I banked on, in this case, the person, James Baldwin. I won't say everybody knows him, but if you have lived long enough, you've at least heard of him. So I was banking on that fact and the fact that to produce a piece about his life, um, generally, if you know of a playwright, you know about the playwright's work. But Baldwin was as alive as his plays and his books. So nothing's outside of the other. So to really have that done and to produce it and to really feel this piece come to life and to see the responses from the audience that came, again, I'm totally thankful and grateful. And that in turn, uh, uh, like I said, galvanized me and say, okay, I can do it, and it's challenging, but it's not something I dislike. I like it.
And what about the part that you want to learn more about? Or do you know everything?
No, sure. No, goodbye. No, no, I don't know everything. No, no, thank you. But the great part of, again, I recall an example. Great part of that was our stage manager sitting right in front, Jen Hamilton. Yep. Um, she is the quintessential stage manager. Was and is, and whatever you do in the future, that, uh, including raising rate. You had everything tight and right, as I used to say all the time. You know, we did everything, scheduling everything you mentioned earlier in what is to be done role wise. Jen already had it locked down, and so that made that process so much easier. And um, really, just to watch you work at the time was it's great, and it was instruction because I knew, yeah, fix your face. So because I knew what I did right, but I also knew what I needed to correct. So when you put it that way, yeah, that makes sense. So
And Stephanie, which role, producer, director, stage manager, production manager, or designer do you feel you understand best, and which one do you want to know more about?
Um, didn't even put writer, but
Well, you already know that.
right. So I guess out of those, I guess producer, I feel like I understand best because I need to know. Um, and one I know the least about, I was going to say stage manager, but also designer, I think, because when you notice how much work goes into the design, um, that is just entirely foreign to me. And so when you're, especially as a wordsmith, you're writing this stuff down and you're sort of picturing something in your head, but you don't have the same vision that a designer has for all of the feature, bringing everything together. Um, and noticing, Heidi Breeden is out here, and she was a dramaturg and also director for my piece. But watching Heidi working with Anna and Jen with the lighting, there was that special lighting in the beginning of the show. I had no idea what y'all were talking about around the table. I mean, it really just sounded like Greek to me. But then when I saw it in the rehearsal, it was entirely moving, and it was like, yes, you captured what my words were.
Well, and that's the magic alchemy between a playwright, a director, and the designers, because you translate. The designer and the director have an ability to internalize one of the things that needs to happen, which is page to stage. Producing a script is one thing, producing a play is another. If you want to produce a script, just read it. My sister is also a writer, playwright, and a creator. And one time she wrote a play that we read, and in the play, she said a camel walks across the stage. And I was like, well, what are we supposed to do? And she's like, well, I mean, get a camel. And we ended up using a puppet, and it worked great. And it was a really funny and magical moment. But you could do a lot of things. We're going to do a play later on that we need a deer, full life-size deer. And apparently, Anna's told me that there are places you can rent taxidermy deer from. So we're going to do that, I guess.
A lot of producing a play is having a design team that lots of research and know who to ask.
Let me ask Stephanie this question. You've produced some scripts and you've had producing teams as a playwright. You got a new script coming up. I think it's called Snaps. Is that right? If you were going to produce it tomorrow, what's the first step you would take?
Step one would be table read. I would, or even before that would be dramaturgy. Heidi is my
And
partner with
can you
reading
define
things.
for people who don't know what dramaturgy is?
So dramaturgy is, well, what I experience with it is basically having a sounding board, somebody who's reading your script and looking at the entire structure of it. Does it make sense? Interpreting sort of what you were going for and what you were asking you questions. That's what Heidi was doing a lot with my scripts, sending it back to me and saying, okay, I've got 3 questions for this part here. Are you going for this? Why did you need this person to do that? So it really kind of tightens up the script in terms of, do we need all of these characters? Are they doing all the things that you want them to be doing? Do we need 2 acts even, or just the whole structure of the play? So I think I would start there, or with this script with Snaps, I actually did a couple of workshops with it, which is through the Dramatists Guild. They offer some great classes and workshops, and they're online, so you can just sign up and do maybe a 6-week or a 12-week workshop where you send your play in, and that sort of serves the same function, and just in terms of like, okay, is this script where I want it to be to even do a table read? So my script's right around there. So I would do the table read, just call a bunch of friends I know are enthusiastic about my work, are available, can come on this day, and go to Charlotte's Off Broadway or find a space that we can sit quietly. I record it. I usually ask everyone if they're okay if I'm recording it just for myself to hear the words, because oftentimes I want to go back later, or I'm just so engaged in reading, I don't remember later on. I can go back through it and say, oh, okay, that really did work. And just hear it out loud, but just hear it out loud for yourself. And don't put any pressure for having an audience or even having it make sense. Um,
Can you speak a little bit to gender? I know, what if your play was all women? Would you necessarily have to have actors who were women read it?
No, I would just want the best actors that I could find that were available, because Brian could read a woman's part with with the inflection that you would need. That's imagination. I can hear it, but yeah, I would probably start with trying to get women if I knew that I were ultimately going to cast them. But that wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. I would just want to hear it by actors who were creative, who would make choices. Uh, move it along.
And the same question for Brian. If you were going to produce a new script tomorrow, what's the first step you would take?
I would do everything Stephanie said. No, seriously. I do have a script um, that I've been wanting to fully produce for quite some time. I've told the people that Baldwin is my new child. This other script I've had is my first child. Um, uh, and it deals with the prison system and everyone whom I've told the premise to them. But to get them to go from the emotion to table read, the actors has been a little challenging. I have had table read in the past, and I've tweaked the script to where it's ready to pull out. Um, so, and I realize it's a script like that's going to take a little time to get together. But clearly, everything you said, top to bottom, what I would do, no doubt.
In some of my other notes, I indicated, and then I got some reactions from these folks, that a playwright should not direct their own work. And that can sometimes be a controversial statement. No, Brian, did you direct your own work? And Stephanie, did you direct your own work?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we
But
have
I'm not
two
a
differences
director.
of opinion. I would like Brian to tell us why he directed his own work briefly, and Stephanie the same.
Because I had the vision in mind completely of what the piece wanted to say, what I wanted it to say, convey, and to be fully transparent. I knew if I had to hire a director, blow up my budget. That's just real talk. This is also a business. But I'm grateful that uh, I had the bandwidth to do all that I did with everyone around me um, involved in that experience. It, it said exactly what I wanted it to say, and it was performed exactly the way that I wanted. Now, real quick, late great Woody King just passed, he created the Federal Theater. I was talking to my mentor a few weeks ago, and he said Woody's told him the same thing. I don't like playwrights who direct their own work. Come on, man. But anyway, so I've heard people echo that. That's
Well, let's ask Stephanie, why did you not direct your work?
Well, first of all, Brian is a director. So
There
so
is
let's
that.
start there.
Brian has experience directing other people's projects.
Right. So yeah, that's the main reason for me. I can completely relate to wanting to keep the budget tight. So if I had that skill, yeah, I don't see a reason why I wouldn't do it. But I will say that having a good director gives you that little bit of distance to be able to. If once again, there's like a collaborative process where you kind of like, for me, it's great to be able to let go and say, okay, what is the director seeing with this? Now you have to let go. Maybe they're
Yeah.
seeing something that you didn't see. And so part of the collaboration is, okay, when should I speak up and when should I not? And of course, I'm never going to speak to the actors. I'm not the director. But I might talk to the director afterward, after rehearsal, and say, hey, I was kind of going to this, that, or, did you notice this? And discuss what they did, because it's the first time this show is seeing an audience, and you want to make sure it's coming across the way you want it.
There's another thing I'll jump in to say is playwrights sometimes don't have a lot of experience in theater. They might just be at home writing a play because that's the medium they've chosen to write. And, as we said, you can write a book or you can write a movie script or whatever. If you're a playwright and you don't know a lot about plays and theater, I would try to get myself some education by going to some theater and maybe doing some research or participating in some way so that you get some information. Like we had a playwright who came through and they were not familiar with the role of a stage manager and they were like, well, why can't I do all of that stuff? And we had to sort of hold their hand and patient. I know Heidi's face is horrified. We tried not to make that face for the playwright, but we tried to say, well, a stage manager is your, kind of keeping track of things. The other thing a stage manager does for every rehearsal, they write a report, and there's a template. And then that report says, well, what's happening in costumes? We need a denim jacket for this character. And then costumes reads that report and says, okay, I got to go get a denim jacket. Can we have more, peanuts for the scene where they eat peanuts? Yes, that's what props does. And then it says, oh, the actor got so excited in that scene they broke the drywall when they hit the wall with their fists. So that tells us somebody needs to fix the drywall. And I'm not sure who does that, but somebody's going to do that. It's not going to be me. So those reports give you a kind of a daily snapshot. I'm not going to be there when it's Brian's show that I don't have anything to do with other than having the venue because I'm the oven. He's the cookie dough. So I know, though, I need to be paying attention to what's going on because, if the light isn't working and they're like, the light's not working, or we had some problem in the show where somebody, fell down. I mean, these reports are to help everybody know what happened, how long it took. What if the show got interrupted by an emergency? So these are things that somebody other than the playwright needs to be taken care of. And so that's just something to think about in that context. Yes, sir.
I also wanted to you called the black box an oven. I call it a laboratory. You've got all these theatrical, if you will, chemicals that are in their test tube. Some boil over, some explode, some don't work at all. That's why it's a laboratory. You know, you get the right mix, the right mixture, and that's proper.
Collaboration. Theater is a collaborative art. It's not a single person. Lastly, I'll ask you guys, and then we'll open it up for questions. Stephanie, what resources or support do you wish existed for emerging playwright producers in Charlotte? What do you wish you had?
Good question. Maybe a list of resources, a list of, directors, actors, stage managers, all that. That would be great. But short of that, more opportunities to kind of try things out, different lengths of plays, different levels of production, reading, stage readings, table reads, all of that. I've got a pretty good handle on it now, just from meeting people, from doing things, but I think it's probably hard when you're first starting out, getting to just make those relationships with people. So what Anne said before about just getting out and seeing things, or I started out acting on stage, so that introduced me to a lot of actors, directors, producers in town. So I think, more opportunities to come together where we're not just going to see things, but maybe we are incubating together. I don't know what resource I would call
Theater Charlotte used to have a playwriting group that doesn't exist anymore, like a playwriting circle where you would read each other's work. Actors Theater Charlotte, RIP, they used to do a new play festival. Other groups in Theater Charlotte, Charlotte Repertory Theater, RIP, maybe you notice a trend. They used to have a new play festival, so there are some things that we've lost in the last 20 years that used to exist, which are kind of playwriting circles, the same way you have a songwriting circle or you have an audition workshop or something. So there's space for some people to get together amongst themselves. Charlotte Lit is a literary organization in Charlotte, and I know there are some playwrights who are part of that. So there's some circles. You go online, go to Facebook, and look around for these kind of writing groups that are going to support each other. Brian, do you have some resources or supports that you wish existed?
I think one has popped up via the ASC, the Arts and Science Council, which grateful I took advantage of uh, in terms of needing a resource, a place to have your piece done. They have what's called a venue access grant, which you can apply for, and you can. There's a whole list of venues that you can apply to get money for, ranging from 5,000 up to I think between 10 and 20,000. Speak, but that's a huge resource because the one area that we don't have is with reasonable opportunity are venues. Um, aside from this, and Theater Charlotte, fortunately, diminishing, but at least this grant potentially can help you realize your dream.
And there are, I think, venue access grant. Just go to the Arts and Science Council, look for grants
Yeah.
for individuals. You can get it as an individual. You can also get it as an organization.
Yep.
The other thing I would say is Charlotte's Off Broadway is a great venue, but it's 55 seats,
Yep.
and we don't do a lot of producing outside of our own work.
Yep.
But there's also the Arts Factory on the west side. It used to be the JCSU theater space, but now it's sort of independently available for rental, and that is also a venue access grant supported venue. The Arts Plus building, which is the church on Plaza Midwood, that's a venue that's available to these kinds of things. And well, on VAPA, this stage right here, you are part of VAPA is part of the venue access grant. So if let's again, a table read here, if you thought you could get more than 55 people, by all means, come here. And if you're doing a musical, I mean, this would be a great place to just say, play some songs. I mean, I think that this is a better room for music than Charlotte's Off Broadway. But the church is also, places where people are used to going to see something else. That's maybe where you should go and get your piece in front of some other people. And like I said, get your friends to come. I mean, when Elise Williams did her show, she had every person in the world coming out, and I would say, how'd you come to the show? And she's like, oh, I'm Elise's neighbor. I'm like, yeah, that's how you get people to come. Let's open it up for questions. We got about 10 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to add, Anne, that Charlotte's Off Broadway, even though it's 55 feet, it's such a good incubator space because I was able to, like I said, the marketing is not my strong point, but I have a good friend who, for free, is very good at social media and all that kind of stuff, and she taught me and helped me do things on stories and do really easy links so people would come, and so we ended up, I think, almost selling it out. And in addition, I would write personal letters to various producers in town, inviting them personally to come. And that resulted in, I think, maybe 3 different offers for, fully staged productions after my reading that I did there. So that's
And you ended up getting it produced, right?
getting it produced, yeah, up at Davidson Community Players. So I think that's a really great service that Anne is offering and Charlotte's Off Broadway is offering that exists nowhere else. It's like this very ready to go incubator space when you're ready for each step. They're there for you.
And we can be available more than one.
Yes,
If
we,
you
yeah,
get scheduled soon enough.
there are other theaters. I mean, Central Piedmont Community College has several theaters, including down in Matthews. And think about geography too. Maybe your audience that you're trying to reach, or maybe you physically are down in near Matthews. There's the Georgia Tucker Theater is in Central Piedmont, and that might be the right venue for you because it's I think 150 seats,
100 seats.
160, 100 seats.
100.
Okay, thank you. See, even better. Let's open it up for questions. I see one on the front row. Yeah, I think that if you have your students, you can tell them to email Charlotte's Off Broadway, and I would say a table read was what they were going for, and you can rent our spaces. You can rent the rehearsal studio for $50 for 4 hours, and you can rent the main stage for $150 a day. So I would say $50 for 4 hours to just come and sit around a table and read with people, and we can maybe help them find some actors if they need that help. Well, and we can also direct you that. Metroland Theater Association is a community-based organization that puts together a lot of theaters, and if you go on there, you can find people. Also,
You can go to the Metrolina Theater website and they just list, some of us have just said, we put our name on there. So if we're looking, there are technicians listed there and
stage managers,
stage managers and
designers.
lighting designers. And remember, these are all separate jobs. And, but yeah, well, not so much actors, but I was
Yep.
going to say they do unified auditions once a year. That if you get involved in that, you will see a lot of actors come and audition for a lot of production companies all at one time.
Facebook, I use
Charlotte
Metrolina Theater Association, MTA.
Metroland Theater Association has a Facebook and it has a website. And on there, they'll list individual theater companies when their auditions are. Metroland Theater Association sponsors what's called a unified audition. Some people call it a cattle call. And it's basically that the actors come into one room, they do their one monologue, but they're in front of about 20 theater companies from Charlotte. So they're seen once. If you and your lit group wanted to sit in, all you'd need to do is just tell Metroland Theater Association you want to come. It's free for the theaters to watch.
And
Also-
they put out a monthly email. So you
And-
want to join that too.
Yeah, also Metrolina, like Carolina.
Like metro area of the Carolinas.
And then the one other thing I would say is Facebook has Charlotte Theater Society, Charlotte Actors, Charlotte Film Society. There are Facebook pages. If you post on there seeking actors for a reading at Charlotte Lit, I would probably do it at Charlotte. Does Charlotte Lit have a physical space? I would probably do it at Charlotte Lit because, again, you don't want to do something like that if you don't know the actors in somebody's living room. That's sort of skeevy. But if you do it at Charlotte Lit in the the community room or a conference table or at VAPA, you could call it VAPA and get a space here, or you could even inquire about renting another room. You just need a room with a table to do a table read. Literally, you sit around and you read it out loud. But yeah, I think that there are lots of spaces in town that one could find. Go on Charlotte Theater Society or it's the Facebook page, and that's where I'd go. Yep.
My question was, so like, would you talk a little bit about grants and sponsors and stuff like that? And maybe this is a question that y'all can answer too. Like, did you pay for your first production completely out of pocket? Like, did you look for grants and sponsors first to get started, or like, how did you manage the monetary aspect of that?
Well, I did apply for a grant, and I received the grant, and they won't tell you this. I realized that I needed some more funds. And fortunately, thankfully, I had some friends who were like-minded and very gracious, not just friend to friend, but also monetarily. And a lot, I believe in serendipity. Everything came together.
It's okay to ask your friends for money for something like this, the same way you would ask them for money if you were having a baby, to have a baby shower. Seriously, I'm not money to do a play, and I'm very grateful to her. She could have given me money for, the grocery store, but I said, no, this is important to me, and so she gave me some money.
My wife.
People he knew. He did a formal letter that explained the why, the purpose, the outcome, everything, and that made a difference. He raised more money with that formal letter, even though he was just asking. He raised more money that way than just saying, "Hey, can you help me out?"
In the back there?
Question about money. Always good to talk about money. Um, what what are you asking for? Like a specific amount in that letter, and what kind of amounts are we talking about? I'm just curious, like, what is the average budget for a simple, you know, production? Yeah, like, do you ask for a certain amount? Like, this makes you a key contributor, this makes you a gold level, and here's what you get, sort of like that?
Yeah, I don't think you personally, you don't need to get that complicated. You can just say, I'm going to do a script in hand reading. The budget is $1,500 because I have 5 actors and I want to pay them each $100. And then I'm going to need a lighting designer. They're about $300 because they're going to come in on Tuesday. They're going to sit with you and you're going to light a design. It's going to be very simple, but it's going to be enough to create a little more theatrical environment. And then you're going to do 2 readings. And you're going to need some sort of sound design maybe, and that's another $200. So it starts to add up. You're going to get on some sort of website that is going to run your reservations. But you may not need to get your friend to come and sit at the door. Then they're free, and you just do a pay what you can, and you take that money, which you'll probably get about $150 at the pay what you can if you have 25 people come in and pay you money. Yes. No, do not expect your ticket sales to cover your thing. I personally, Charlotte's Off Broadway subsidizes itself, but I've gotten more fortunate over time in that my professional day job is a nonprofit fundraiser, so I know how to write grants and I know how to do that kind of thing. One of the things we need to do also is how to write grants for theater. That can be our next artist panel, how to write grants for theater. But go look at the Arts and Science Council website. They're probably the easiest doorway to go through for individual artists in town. And there's an artist support grant for $3,000. That would probably cover all of your costs. There's this venue access grant. Basically, you say, I want to rent this place. They have memo of understanding or some sort of signed contract that is contingent upon you getting the grant. And I think, you can get $3,000 to $4,000 for that. If you were rehearsing for 2 weeks and doing 2 weeks of performance, it would be about $4,000. And then you can get a lighting designer, you can get a set designer, but you may not need all of those things. You can do it very simply. So again, I would say if you were doing a table read, it's $100. If you were doing a script in hand reading, $500 to $1,000. If you were doing a full production, it can be $5,000 to $25,000. Yes, go ahead, stage manager Jen.
When you're looking for technical help, be clear about what you are looking for and don't expect them to be able to do multiple things. If they can do multiple things for you, that's great. And you might consider the fact that they're doing more than one job for you, so when you compensate them. But just be very clear. And you'll find people who are happy to do multiple jobs for you. But if you don't, like when you're asking for money, if you're not clear up front what you're looking for and what you want, you may not find the right person. And also, you don't want to frustrate someone if you hire them to do one thing and then you say, oh, by the way, will you also go get these props for me too? So just, yeah. Well, I mean, just be clear up front what you're asking for, especially since you're talking about small budgets. There are a lot of people who are willing to help, but just make sure you know that they are clear about what you're asking from them.
Hello, hello, check, check. Thank you. I have
Last question.
yeah, 2 questions. First one, in response to what you're talking about, when you're looking at your techs coming in, the people who are designing your lights or hanging your lights or doing your sound, are we talking about union people for this job or on this list
No,
that you're talking
you
about?
can't afford that.
Okay. It's just a question, because I was,
No, there are union people and they are great.
because
They're
that's what I'm
affordable.
saying. I'm thinking it depends on the venue because I can't
It-
imagine
it
some of
does
the venues
It
here.
does depend on the venue,
but you don't need to have union people.
So North
That was the
Carolina,
question. Do
yeah.
they? Because most people are union that
Yeah.
I've worked at in different venues. That's why I was asking because it could cost you a little less, but you still have to respect their work.
Yeah.
North Carolina is a right to work state.
Yes, I am
There
aware.
are plenty of union technical people out there that will work outside of their rate, but it might be a secret.
Okay.
And
If they are very
We're not going to put
active.
this on the
There
table.
are also plenty of technical people out there that are non-union that just work union gigs on the side. So you just have to be very clear about what the job description.
Yes.
Okay. And this,
Yeah.
thank you. And then the second, yes, the venue thing. I could thank you. The dramaturgy. Okay.
Dramaturg.
Was so
Drama-
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a dramaturg is the name of the person.
Dramaturg is the person. Dramaturgy is the thing that they do.
This is a good job.
It is.
So how do you determine? See, I wrote that really small. Who would be a great dramaturg? Or how does one find?
Well, let's ask Heidi, the
Hey, we said
dramaturg.
We have one right here.
Would you hand her the mic and she can
Heidi
tell
was
you?
my dramaturg, and I saw her doing dramaturgy.
And how do you get that position?
Okay, so I'll start with the easy one, which is you get that job by really loving reading plays, really loving learning, really doing a lot of research and spending time in the work so that you can speak to the work. And you are willing to do that because you love it and not because it's getting you a paycheck. So it is a job. There is a union. There are union rates. I have union connections, but I have not paid to join LMDA, which is the Actors Equity of Dramaturgs, if that makes sense. But the same supports are there, whether or not they've actually introduced a really cool structure that means that I'm actually able to join financially now, where I didn't used to be, which is really great of LMDA because they know we don't make a lot of money. That being said, it can feel daunting to hire a dramaturg when you see the rates, but everyone has to do what they can do, and certain projects are worth my free time. Other projects, I'm going to need a fee for.
Who you can vibe with, basically. Absolutely. You want someone who you've seen before who's been very careful with somebody's words and you've seen it in action. That's what happened with Heidi and I. I went to read a script that someone else had written for Heidi around it in a table read, and I saw how she was with the playwright, and I said, "Can you help me?" Maybe it's a playwriting instructor that you see the way that he respects everybody's work and helps move it along.
And just like
And
one
I'll-
teeny word, I'm sorry. Don't bring on a dramaturg who is not there to make your play its best version of itself. We are not playwrights. And if you have someone who is offering script feedback that feels more like change it to this, change it to that, with love and professional respect, that person may be a playwright, not a dramaturg. Okay, I'll keep up.
Okay, and we're going to wind it up. We want to thank Arthur, too, for taping it, and it'll be on the Charlotte Stop Broadway website eventually. And thank you again. We'll hang out for a few minutes and see if you have any other questions. But thank you very much for coming to our panel.
Thank you.